So, here I am again. Nothing changes. Nothing changes, right? No, a lot changes actually. The body will always change. I'm looking up my notes here because today I'm going to talk about a number of things. And I'm going to get philosophical about some of these things that I would say nobody talks about, right? Or nobody will say it. Nobody in the world will say what I'm about to say that I know of. Um, or at least I haven't heard it. But that's what comes with sitting with oneself for a very long time, processing. Okay, so I am a victim survivor of narcissistic parents. Both had very different personalities, but I figured that they were both narcissistic. Physical violence, mental abuse, physical abuse, uh, whatever you want to talk about. I was the black sheep, the truth teller, got punished more for being the truth teller, got into a relationship with a childhood, wasn't a friend, it was a friend of my brother's, childhood friend of my brother's. And if you see my last videos, you'll see my struggle towards the end of the relationship, how crazy I was going in my head. All right. And crazy in your head is, I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? I don't see the volume button here. Yeah, I think hopefully you can hear me. Crazy in my head. Yeah. And now it's been a long time since I made a video alive. And I have now experienced a nice long time of, I would say, peace. And peace and the whole nervous system and everything that all these therapists talk about rightfully and with correctness about the ventral vagal nerve and fight or flight, freeze, fawn. You know, if you've come to me, you've heard it all from other people, I'm sure. And if you haven't, go see them. Their channels, Ramani, R.C. Blake's, um, Jordan Peterson, even. Those are like the big people that really know how to talk about this stuff. Yeah. Um, so I think one of the things that's missing in a lot of this stuff is that a survivor does not have a baseline, a victim of childhood abuse and then going into a relationship like I did, does not have a baseline of peace where the nervous system can actually relax, and then there's an acknowledgement of, wow, my body actually feels different. Because I would say that my body felt like shit for I'm a half a century now. I would say for the first, from what I remember, the first 48 years of my life, my body was always on fight or flight. All right. It was enough, as I discussed in other videos, to create a cancer within me. I survived the cancer, lots of chemotherapy, or enough to get rid of it. And that was when I was 35. And that was, I had been in a relationship with this childhood uh, associate comrade, I would say. Uh, just to wrap it up, 3 years when I was young, I met him when I was age 12, age 13 to 16, and then broke up for 6 years and then got back together at like I was 25, and then another 25 years of my life of absolute hell. Absolute hell, because as the man who wrote Beyond Mars and Venus says, there was no emotional support. I married someone that was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder late in life. And then I gave him another 5 years after that. So the last 5 of the 25 years I was with him, I was had learned that there was this diagnosis. I had always known that there was something off and wrong, and went against my better judgment as far as intuition, as far as what my body told me, as far as what um, I had even told him. I told him early on when we got back together again, I did not want to be with him anymore. It wasn't working out. And then I took pity on him, being the empath, which is not a good thing, and taking him in thinking I can change him. That whole thing everybody's so informed about nowadays, about you can't change anybody. They have to change themselves, right? So my but when people say your body's telling you, someone that is a victim like myself, we don't know what that has value, that your that tension that you feel in your body, the sweaty palms, the nervousness, we don't know that that is a simple God-given value that needs to be taken very seriously instead of pushed away and brushed off. So that's why when I say, my body was telling me to reject this situation, reject this person, and every time I would ignore that, take them back, think I could work through it. So that's one caveat in the mix here. What exactly does your body feel like? So by not taking that into account, your body cellular memory will remember all this awful, traumatic, heartbreaking information on a cellular level. So that's how I got the cancer. Then I got over the cancer. Thank God I didn't get another one, but I did develop other growths in my body. And this last 5 years were particularly hard. I had fibroid adenomas in my breasts. I had um, cysts in my ovaries, and then development of fibroids, which weren't doing anything, it seemed, until COVID hit. So COVID, I got Delta in July of 2021, right around my marital anniversary date. It's interesting because there's just so many things that are so telling. The day I got married, which I think I described in another video, I didn't even know I was going to get married that day, which is awful in itself. Everything was against what I ever wanted, or the backwards way. Was also my last day of chemotherapy. And then I also got COVID around that time in 2021. So I would say, and I had now I'm going to get down and dirty for the women that are seeking out a testimonial for sonata and sonata treatment, which I had. But it was a long road to get there for me to figure out that it existed and I could do it and what I potentially needed. So during COVID, I had one of the worst periods ever in my life. I bled right through the bed. And the COVID was awful. I think I may have done a video about that. I was bedridden for 10 days. And then I wasn't vaccinated because I knew that the vaccines were going to be hard, and they were not as hard as COVID, but I think that it would have had I would have ended up in the same realm with my fibroids situation. So 2 months later, this was before the research was out that said, wait, but I was required to be vaccinated for work after I had gotten Delta. It wasn't required before, but then there was protocols that came out that said I had to be vaccinated. So 2 months later, I got vaccinated and I picked Moderna. Me in my head, I said, well, I waited so long, I might as well take the strongest thing. Well, that bedrid me for 4 days, and I did it during my cycle. Okay. So I did it during my cycle because I figured, oh, I'm going to, a person of convenience because I'm a workaholic. Well, I'm going to be home anyway because in my elder years here, I stay home for my period, and especially because after they were just bad anyway, but it wasn't as bad as when COVID hit. Like I couldn't even manage it anymore. So then each vax, I was bedridden for the two Modernas for 4 days with all hell broke loose in my body. And then, and then that was by I would say February. I had a period that seemed like it was going to end, and it ended. And then 2 days later, like blood, like I didn't know. I was crying. I was on the toilet. I couldn't figure out what in the heck, how much blood was. It was like there was a hole in my uterus, and just like the blood was just exiting, and it would clot, and then an hour or so later, then this gigantic clots would come out, and so I went to the emergency room. My friend told me to go to the emergency room, and I did. And they said the fibroids were so big, I needed to go. They couldn't even see everything with the intravaginal sonogram. Then they gave me this medicine, transamic acid, supposed to stop the bleeding, but then it's kind of stopped. But after 15, 16 days. Okay, so now my periods were that intense and that long. Okay, so there would be like 4 to 5 days of intense bleeding, and then for a total of 16 days. I would say from the time the blood started to the time the blood ended. The time blood started, heavy days right here. Time the blood ended, that many days. So then I started going to the doctors, and the doctor that I had, hysterectomy was the only option. Or I could, hysterectomy was an option. I shouldn't say was the only option at that point. I was found to have, they didn't know if it was a fibroid or a polyp, but I did do a procedure, a DNC, a hysteroscopy, and a polyp removal. She said it wasn't even a polyp. She said it was like the fibroid had grown into a polyp. So there was 4 fibroids. I should have gotten my notes out here, my medical notes, because the fibroids were, darn it, let me get myself together here. They were like edging, the size of the fibroid was like edging on of these 4 fibroids, and I had clusters of fibroids as well, plus this polyp. I go like this because it was hanging at 12 o'clock. That was, I was on like the edge of, these are gigantic, so hysterectomy. So then I got this polyp removed, and I said, doctor, after I woke up, I said, is the problem going to be gone now? And she said, yes. Well, no, the problem wasn't gone. So it was a fibroidous polyp, a fibroid that grew into a polyp. It removed. And then I thought my periods would get better. And I'm like clockwork. Ever since cancer, my periods are like clockwork, right? Once a month. But now they're lasting long days. So then I wanted to get out of getting the Pfizer. I was going to switch to Pfizer for the 3rd shot because, again, my work required it. And I switched to Pfizer. That put me out one day. I was trying to get out of that medical, and they wouldn't do it. They said no. And I even told the doctor, I said, nothing was wrong with me until COVID. So then I was dealing with it, still staying home. Periods were still began to get very bad. Like after the 2 month second cycle out of the surgery, it was like as if I didn't even have the surgery. It was bleeding again. I'm like, what in the heck? So I didn't know what to do. I was dealing with myself as they were getting worse and worse. And I would say that, I had the surgery in 2022, February 22, dealing with the whole year. By the time January of 2023, I'm sorry, of 2022 came around, I was like, I'm staying home. I'm bleeding like ridiculous amounts for, during my period, still lasting between 12 to 14 to 16 to 19 days. And I was doing all this research, a SASA. I saw uterine artery embolization, hysterectomy. I didn't want any of that. I figured, well, if I did any incisions through my abdomen, I'm just going to do a hysterectomy. But I didn't want to do that. I thought, I wasn't, they said, you're going to go into menopause soon. I don't think I'm going to go into menopause soon. I feel like I'm going to be 75 by the time I go into menopause. I want to keep my uterus. The uterus provides many different things and fluids, and even at that, I would, even if I did have a hysterectomy, I would keep my ovaries and my cervix. So anyway, by the time, like, I think it was like December of 2022, 23, I had done some research and I was like, maybe there's something out there. I love laser, and the technology was sound and laser. And I came across the Sonata, and there was so little on Google about, like, so little. And this is 2022. Like, I had to do such a deep search. Like, their hashtags are totally like non-existent. Like, they should hashtag all the other surgeries that go along, that are the alternatives, that shouldn't even be the alternatives. So I finally found a place, and I or in New York City. I finally found NYU, that NYU could do it. There was doctors there. So I think I called the on-call nurse practitioner at Sonata. I'd been in contact with the company too. And I told her what the situation was and how big my fibroids were. I'm sorry, I don't have but they were like on the edge. Like, they were like, well, we can do one that size. I don't know. It was like, you know, if you look at their information and you see the max size, I'm like 2 centimeters more than their max size that's listed. But I still had hope in myself. Like, this could possibly be done. So make an appointment with the doctor. So I found the doctor at NYU, and then I met with her, and she was the only one that I could find stuff online, like YouTube. People've got to understand, like, these businesses have to understand that people like me, who are doing their own research, go to YouTube and find and dig. And if they don't find that, they're at a loss, because the doctor I had, I told her, when I found this procedure, she's like, I told her, and she had never heard of it. All right. And she even said, you are not a good candidate for that. And she didn't even tell me that they did, I think, Accessa. She didn't even give me the option, like, can I try it at least? So I was like, you know what? Time to move on. So I did find this other doctor, and when I met this doctor at NYU, um, the nurse, her person, that scheduling person, had things wrong in my chart. It was like they had me down that I had an STD. I'm like, what in the heck? I've never had an STD. And like, someone that has never had one prides themselves on that and does not want to be associated with ever having something like that. It's like almost offensive. Not to offend anybody else, but hey, that's just how it is, with me anyway. I speak for myself here. But anyway, when I met with the doc, very young, she had some things on YouTube that I watched. That she was into robotics. So she said that she would do the incisions, and and that I wasn't a good candidate for Sonata. I said, well, can't you do both? She said she had never done both. And that was a turnoff to me, AKA a red flag, right? So I decided I'm not confident in this person, because if I'm just a layperson saying, why not do both? And she doesn't even consider it. I mean, what kind of, that's not my people. I'm a forward thinking person, and I'm an innovator. So I want my doctor to be innovative too. Okay. Or take the chance or risk or the opportunity. Here's a body, they have an opportunity to try something out on, right? A willing person, desperate. And, by this time, the blood clots were so intense, and that my body would like shoot out like a torpedo, these clots at times. So unpredictable, the period. I'd be home. The pain was unbelievable, was through the roof with these periods. I was bedridden, moaning in pain, headaches, vomiting or almost vomiting. I had to take all kinds of Advil to help myself through, which hardly worked. Debilitating pain, okay, for 3 days straight at least with these periods. So I could not work. So then I called the nurse practitioner and she mentioned another doctor. She said that other doctor would be more aggressive. And I don't want to mention the doctor's names, but then I met the other doctor finally. By that time, it was March or something, or the beginning of April of 2023. So here I'm suffering for 2 years after having gone through a procedure. And I'm thinking that damn polyp up top there grew back. All right. I'm like, if I had had Sonata, it would have blasted this thing away and killed it and everything else. So I met the doctor. She was totally confident in doing it. And so she wanted to schedule me for even the end of the week or something. And that was it. But then here's some of the administrative BS that you have to go through if you're going to get this procedure. Is I'm guessing because it's a newer procedure, when the doctor sends the okay to the health company, like the request to do it, this request has to go through Sonata first, okay? So the scheduling person at the doctor waited like 3 days to put in this rush order. All right, it's a rush order, which means either same day or next day, put it in, the request with the healthcare. She waited 3 days. She puts it in. I think it was like supposed to be the following week already. She puts it in on the Thursday. The weekend goes by. Now I'm calling the Sonata person herself that is supposed to sign off on this because I got wind from the nurse practitioner that that's the other person to talk to. Lo and behold, she either drags her feet. She gave the excuse that it hadn't come in, that she hadn't received it. Well, the day that it was due was at least it had to be 20, according to the scheduling person at my doctor's office, it had to be in 2 days before the scheduled surgery. But here's the day before, and I'm not hearing your surgery's canceled. I'm getting calls from the hospital prepping me, with the don't eat and you have to, don't drink and be ready to come in. I think it was the Friday. So I'm getting that on the Wednesday and the Thursday. Haven't heard back from the doctor's office. I'm finally calling the woman at the Sonata place, and she said she had gone to a funeral or whatever. That was the rationale that she gave me. And so the scheduling person at the doctor's office canceled the surgery. It was an hour late. So now I got to wait another month for this procedure, right? Which, as the symptoms get worse and are going to get worse and worse, and forget all these people that say, oh, you could shrink your fibroids. Yeah, not when they're this big, okay? Mine were probably 5 or 6. Not when they're like the size of an egg or something. If the fibroids this big, you ain't shrinking your fibroids, okay? And forget about all that trauma because it's traumatic to try and fail at these things. All right. And forget about the information about, the demographics. There's like a bias. Like, why talk about if it's to increase, knowledge or to get out to the people about this. I'm going to get to that though. All right. You stay tuned for the philosophy of the fibroids. All right. My philosophy. Because when you're sitting there and you're bleeding and you got to sit there in your house and forget about these people about, what do they call the free bleed? Yeah. Free bleed. You're going to be on your toilet all day. Yeah, free bleed. Have fun. Free bleeding. Yeah. All right. So when you're sitting there, you start thinking really, you get really depressed. Depressed thoughts about, your demise, your worth, what happened to you in your life, what you allowed to happen in your life, because there's two different things: what happened to you and what you've allowed happen, what you've seen, what you've allowed your eyes to see, what you've heard, and what you've allowed your ears to hear. All right. Very basic, simple concepts. So simple. The fortune is that it's simple. The misfortune is not the adherence to the simplicity. So, anyway, yeah, I was thinking thoughts like, if the egg bursts out of the left side of my ovary, it's different than the right side. This period's not as bad as the other one. My God, this one is so bad. If this ever developed into a child, it would be like a lunatic child. If this one would be, this period, if this one had developed into a child, this one would be, more passive. I mean, these are the freaking thoughts, like crazy freaking thoughts. You're going crazy when you have this situation. Okay. And that's what happens with me. So I will say that I finally had the surgery the following month. They took no pity. They were not going to rush my surgery the month before. And I would say I took some notes, whatever each period was like after the sonata treatment, which happened for me at the end of April. Yeah. Or the beginning of May. Let's just say it was like May 1st of 2023. So now we're at February of 2024. So I've had 8 cycles. So the net, and I had the whole thing again with the polyp removal, or if there was one, hysteroscopy, DNC, sonata. And then she had told me that, the nurse practitioner said that she was going to do the everything first and then the sonata. Well, no, the doctor decided to do sonata first. I came to found out, and then the everything else afterwards. And I was out. Bullshit, this twilight shit. All right. Even if you're getting a hysterectomy, my poor friend the other day went through a hysteroscopy with no meds. Why do that to yourself? Women have suffered enough. Women have suffered enough. We have the medication. Refuse to do any procedure where you're going through the cervix or whatever without being out, twilight, medication, whatever. So not for sonata though. Sonata, you want to be out. And I learned another thing, that because I told them I'm a singer, I don't want to be, if possible, not to be intubated. Well, I learned that there's this other thing that's like a partial intubation. It does not go through beyond the vocal folds, because I talked to the anesthesiologist about it. All right. There's a new thing that does not go beyond the vocal folds, so you could preserve that. But it's called a partial intubation. And it's not just a mask. It's a little of both, but the tube does not go beyond the vocal folds. All right. So everything fine with the procedure. Was able to walk home slowly, felt fine. I didn't feel anything, no pain, nothing. It was perfect. Perfect doctor. She's the sweetest person ever. Okay. So I would say the period, and then I had a 2-month follow-up. So I had it in May. I think I met her in August. Yeah, August, after my second cycle afterwards. So the first cycle was lighter, because I'll tell you, the cycle after a DNC is going to be lighter, just like it was the first time I had it. All right. So you can't really tell the effects, right? Or you think it's, oh, this is the effect. No, I didn't trust, because I knew about the last time that it was lighter. Then the second cycle was kind of like heavy, but not ridiculous. It was tolerable. Let me see. My notes here for a second. Still get pain, headaches, gas, bloating. Have to take Advil, just one on each day of heavy. Then I suddenly got the chills. 2 to 4 days of heavy cramps, but fourth day, not crazy that I had to take Advil, but headache in the morning. And then this is after the second period. Yellow discharge after period ends after first and second period. Okay, so that I had that. So then I saw the doctor and I told her, she didn't think anything of it, normal. And she's like, how do you think it's going? Oh, it's going good. Third cycle. Ready? Third period after procedure. Day 4, medium. Took tranexamic acid. Oh, she wanted me also, I wanted to say, to help the process along. She wanted me to take a birth control pill, the norepinephrine or something. It's a progesterone, but I learned that there's little progesterone is an estrogen, and it's all synthetic too. I said, no, I don't want to do that, especially because when it comes back from the pharmacy, it says cancer, could cause cancer across the top. And so as a cancer survivor, there's no way in hell I'm going to, with consciousness, take a medicine that says that. And I know it's slim or whatever, but I'm not doing it. And I actually did do it the first couple of days after the surgery. But she had wanted me, and then you have to take that every day. And I said, no. I said, isn't there something else, tranexamic? So then I started doing that, right? Okay, so took tranexamic day 5 was the first day of my heavy period. This is the third cycle. Day 5 was the first day of heavy. Achy all over. The constipation, I shouldn't say constipation, just extremely difficult, hard stool to pass. I tore my ass open day 6. Headache again, but from tranexamic acid. I thought it was from the tranexamic acid, but period lighter, but medium, no cramps overall though, and no pain when I sneeze anymore. I used to have pain like in my abdomen whenever I sneezed. I'd have to like buckle over, and it was so painful. And no bloating or gas. Period lasted a long time, 11 and 12 days suddenly, and final heavy clots came out. So now we're back up to 12 days, third cycle out. All right. Fourth period after sonata treatment. Started early after 2 weeks. Is my uterus going to go back to normal size? Because that's the other thing. My uterus was enlarged. It says on the MRI. Can I get a hormone level test? I'm asking myself. I drank raspberry leaf tea and took half a tranexamic day 4 in morning. I'm still home from work. Now I'm back to not, still not that I'm back to it. Now I'm continuing not going to work. Also doing homeopathic Sabrina since day 3. Very light cramps day 4. Day 5 heavy with light cramps. And then I had bad hard stool for like a month, but I also have an issue with chocolate, and I eat chocolate a lot. So, and I have to really wait it out. I've also had yeast infections, but I haven't had a yeast infection in a long time because I'm able to balance like sugar after actual food, like food that has protein and fat in it. Then I'll eat it, not like just eating chocolate 3 or 4 hours before or after a meal. And I'm actually dealing with some rosacea on my face, which is bouncing around for 4 years now, and seems to be bouncing around more. And my friend tells me, who went through menopause, that and she has fibroids, that it's all related. So, all right. So fifth period after sonata. And I want to thank all the other sonata people who have put the videos out, because it's brave to do your testimonials and very important to share. And I waited such a long time because I wanted to actually see a difference. They said it would take 6 months. Some people saw improvements right after their sonata treatment. Others, it takes 6 months and beyond. For a total of 2 years, I think they track their people, maybe even longer. So I didn't, at this point, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to go for the hysterectomy. And then I call the nurse practitioner again. And I said, did anybody of your people have to have a hysterectomy? She just mentioned one person because she had some crazy ass thing going on in her uterus that they didn't mark it beforehand. They weren't aware of it or something. I don't know, some crazy thing I had never heard of, but very rare. And I also asked her, did your people in the clinical trials and who you're tracking also accompany their treatment with the birth controls? And she said no. So I want to see the result of this sonata and by itself, even though with the birth control, I probably could have stopped having these periods altogether. But my experience with the sonata is that it's such incremental, minute changes every month. You know, you want it to be major, but it's a long time, because to get a fibroid from here to like this over months takes time, and it's only like marked during the period. That's just my thoughts about it, right? So fifth period, took half tranexamic acid, day 4, heavy clots exploding as usual. Also, I took homeopathic Sabrina, and I forget how long. I could also show, go back to see how long. Again, these periods are lasting 14, 16, 17 days. It would be like a couple of days before my period, some light blood, a light day, and then the heavy would start for about 4 or 5 days, and then taper off, but explode with like a clot suddenly. Like you kind of get to know your body, like it's not over. It ain't over till it's over. The blood is not over until it's over. So if you're still seeing fresh blood, that means that there could be a clot developing inside to then, you know, soon to be expelled. Okay. So sixth period came 2 weeks, 2 days after last period, and again seemed 2 days earlier. Fourth day heaviest, and had to take Advil for sudden queasy, faint, nauseous feeling that had me lie down immediately. But then this feeling passed before the Advil even took effect. I took tranexamic, the last 5 Sabrina, homeopathic Sabrinas I had, and raspberry leaf tea. Then I started, okay, at the sixth period, I started experimenting with the menstrual discs, because I'm like, I got to do something even more for myself. And the menstrual disc, is supposedly holds the equivalent of 5 tampons. I'm like, but what size tampons? Well, then I figured it's about 3 super. The disc will hold about 3 super tampons. All right, the amount of 3 super tampons. And this disc, let me tell you, I went to Wegmans and got the disc with the plastic. My God, I broke a sweat trying to get this thing out. You can get it in. It's a whole different way to experience your period. So then I did research on that. I said, well, if I'm going to do this ordeal again, there's no way in hell I'm going to dig inside myself thinking that maybe or maybe not I can get this thing out. And I found what I then ordered, called the Hello Disc by Period Nirvana, a very dedicated woman who has her period regularly, because she's able to do all these things, and decides to have her period because, you know, we have choices these days. So she's dedicated her life to testing menstrual products, and she in particular, because she had a hand in inventing this Hello Disc that has like a pull tab. It's like a more internal tampon, but not. And it's like such a strange, different way of experiencing a period, because there's nothing being absorbed. And so anyway, I said, filled the menstrual disc. So that's the equivalent of 3 super tampons in 1 hour. And then it seemed to stabilize. So now I'm getting used to myself that during my heavy days, I get up from bed and it seems like the blood and clots come out. Okay. And then up until like 1 or 2 o'clock, it's like heavy, and I'll fill a disc in like no time. So, you know, as the doctors in the emergency room, people and everyone says, in the recovery room, well, if you have a super tampon and you're filling it front to back, left to right, like within an hour, then there's a problem. It's like, yeah, well, I could do that in an hour, and I can do that maybe 3 times in 3 hours, and then it kind of like tapers off until the next day, where I'm not doing that, right? And plus, I can't even tell because I'm on the toilet. Okay, I'm not going to expel myself into a pad. Just go to the toilet. I'm home anyway. What a fucking mess of disaster. And sorry, I'm cursing. I shouldn't curse, but really. So then the sixth period, did I say this? Yeah, okay. Now the seventh period. Seventh period, strange, mild, sharp gas pains a week before period. But actual period, no pain, but heavy, but very heavy. So now I'm experiencing no pain, with my periods, but they're heavy and they're lasting a long time. So thank God for the no pain. And then I decided in December to take a job. And I was like, I'm really risking it. But I used the hello disc at my job and it worked out. And then I only go to a job later in the day. This job is really good to test out. Um, so, and I took this is seventh period, took a tranexamic Sabrina and hibiscus tea. Looks like I definitely have a then I have a bulbous hemorrhoid. Yeah, I already have a sentinel pile. You could look that up. I'm not going to go into that. So then, so that's the seventh period. Now the eighth period, I have my little cycle here. The eighth period, so the seventh period lasted 14 days from the first signs of blood to the last signs of blood. My eighth period. That's why I'm here today. I'm finally experiencing a change. My period only lasted 10 days. And my friend said, only? Yeah. Well, when you're dealing with a period that's been like bloody murder, I would call myself, like I would say I was in, I was, I'm about to go into my bloodbath. My bloodbath is supposed to happen at any time. You know, the out damn spot. It's not just a spot. It's like, and then so how are you not anemic? People would say, I said, I probably am. I kind of like look like hell afterwards. But then I get my strength back. I make sure I eat, you know, nice high protein and high fat. And so my period lasted 10 days. It was again, one time I had one period, it was like light one day, then medium, then heavy. So the third day was heavy. But this was back to like what it was like a couple months ago. Light for 3 days, then medium, now heavy. And this is like my notes. On the fourth day, wore disc to work, didn't take it out for 12 hours, put in disc overnight for next day. Day 5, took disc out after sleeping all night. It was pretty full. Slight cramps, weakishness, started around 1 p.m., 1 Advil. Diarrhea finally hit at 1:30. Going to work soon. At 3 p.m., leak, and then didn't auto dump. So, there's such a foul way they talk about this. This disc, apparently, when it sits in the body, it tucks behind the pelvic bone. And if you don't know about your body, you're going to know everything about your body, okay, at this point. All right? And you should know. All right? Anyway, I'm an ancient individual to just be dealing with this stuff now. The women these days are so far ahead, thank God, with some of this stuff, all right? So the disc, what was I going to say about that? Oh, yeah, it auto dumps. Apparently, when you sit on the toilet and you have a bowel movement or even pain, this disc kind of like changes as your body is contracting or making its movement, the disc dumps out the blood and you can leave the disc in. What a strange thing that is. But in my case, the disc is so full during these times, I have to take the disc out. It doesn't just auto, because then it'll continue to leak. So this is what it means. Had at 3 p.m. then didn't auto dump because it was leaking, but it wasn't auto dumping when I went to the bath. So I took it out and put it back in. Had to remove to dump again at 5:30. So that's 2.5 hours later. Started feeling tired around 8 p.m. Gas pains, abdominal discomfort started around 9 p.m. At 9:30 okay, you do the math. 9:30 took disc out half full. I took an Advil for light annoyingness, like just annoying. So now it's day 6, right? Disc very full in morning. As soon as getting up after 12 hours, took it out. So the disc is helping me, instead of having to get up 3 times during the night, periods, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 after the sonata treatment, I was having to get up 3 times a night at the worst, 3 times a night to change this tampon. This is tampon end pad. So at least with the disc, at this point, with the increasing uh, uh, benefits of the sonata, 12 hours took it out. Heavy day. It was a heavy day, day 6. Boxing match in my bloated abdomen. It's like, you hear all this kinds of stuff going on, but so far don't have to take Advil. Disc leaking 2.5 hours later, took out at 4:30. Dropped small clots every hour, it seemed. All right, nice and graphic for you. but that's what we need. This is what I'm giving you, what I wanted to hear in some other sonatas, okay? Testimonials. Okay, so now we're on to day 7. Another heavy day. Seemed like day would be medium, but still clotting. Took disc out in morning after 11 hours, medium to heavy full. Left disc out, 1 medium heavy clot every 2 hours, it seemed. All right, day 8. Now up to light. Had not worn disc overnight. Of course, nothing all day until very late, just before shower, a little blood again. I shower at night. TMI, right? Well, I'm going to get to TMI now. I shower at night. Oh, that's TMI. All right, light. 1 drop on my way to work at 9 a.m. and then, of course, again at 8 p.m. So I consider this a light day. It started up a little, but no major big plot, just fresh blood. Yeah, it's the fresh blood that you want to, that worries you. Day 9, 1 clot around 5 p.m. with no accompanying blood. All right, so this is when you get like this dry seeming clot. It's still a clot, but it's kind of dry. And then light after. And then that was it. Yeah, that was 10 days 10. Sorry, day 10. But then I had a blinding headache the next day. Now, this is where I'm going to get into philosophy. So if you stuck with me for this long, that day before I had seen my former spouse, my hex, as I like to call him, when I have to call him anything or refer to it with humor. Blinding headache, which completely triggers my chemotherapy days. It feels like yesterday, even though it's like 16 years ago. Okay. That's how awful and brutal cancer chemotherapy treatment is without the accompanying psychiatric anti-anxiety drugs. Because my doctor back then, I believe, was sadistic and did not give me those routine medicines that I found out later on were routine medicines. I want to keep this as brief as possible. But people who have fibroids, you lay with a man that's doing you wrong, that you know is doing you wrong, that does you right sometimes, or you think that there's possibility and you just staying with him, blah, 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 because he's a good guy, blah, 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 everybody likes him, blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. You lay with a man, you're going to create fibroids, right? Talking about now bring the demographics in, right? Bring the demographics in of the martyr situation, the I will be your person forever situation. I'm there for you no matter what situation. The unwarranted submission of a woman to an unworthy man. He's going to, every time he pounds away at you, even if you want it, you're going to create a fibroid situation. So that is my philosophy and my ordeal, and part of how the body keeps a score. I know that's the name of a book, which I read, and it's true. All right. So these fibroids got there because of my obtuse, acute stress. It's interesting how obtuse and acute are like opposites, but it's obtusely acute ordeal I had with this former spouse of mine who I love very much. I poured all my love into this person. I gave all my love. I was operating full throttle, maximum capacity on the giving of love to this person. Okay, my husband. Full throttle, maximum capacity of every bit of love, attention, affection I had to an unworthy person. All right, this is the effects of it. All right. So you have fibroids, keep that in mind. If that is part of your equation, that you are being pounded away on, that you are engaging sexually with someone that is unworthy of you, there is no hope for the relationship. And as I like to say, relationship. When there is no hope for it, it's not going to get any better. You are not married. Remember, I was not married for 9 years before I got married. That is an indication enough. This man, still a man, moved into my space. Talk about learning the hard way. I learned the hard way. Not that I had guidance, okay? I didn't have guidance. There was rules, but the rules seemed to be administered by these awful people that were doing me so much harm anyway. So I chose not to listen to them. You don't listen to the rules, and that's the other good book, The Rules. All right, so get out of those relationships, save your body, your sanity, your health, your mind. Listen to these great spiritual advisors, R.C. Blakes, Dr. Ramani. I mean, these people take it down for you. The therapists, the doctors who are the actual therapists who give the therapy, R.C. Blakes does not give therapy, but it's almost like therapy. The doctors who give the therapy have chosen a vocation where they want to want to get people out of hell. Okay, they see that the person's in hell and they choose to get that person out of hell, which means that the person's in hell. All right, I was in hell. I was in hell for 25 years, and hell is relative. All right, you don't have to read the news and the extreme about, child sex trafficking and people being blown apart in other countries and wars. If that is not part of your immediate world, then that hell is not your hell. All right? Your hell is relative to you. Just remember that. Your hell is relative to you. So if you are in hell and you are feeling awful and your body feels like shit and you're confused, confusion is the work of evil. Confusion is the work of the devil. Confusion is not the way of the light. It's not the path. All right? It depletes, it exhausts, and it makes you anti-life. Like, it makes almost not worth living. And what are you living for? The opposite is vibrance, rejuvenation, reinvigoration. That's why the sensual and sexual process, within the right parameters, with the right match, with the right fit of person, when you're evenly yoked, it is rejuvenative. It is invigorating. It is long lasting. It recharges you. It's not, if you feel exhausted, that's the indication that it's not the right thing to get out of that, no matter how much you've invested. I had to give up my patient, that it's not the right thing to get out of that, no matter how much you've invested. I had to give up my entire life. I'm burnt to the ground here. Thank God I have this apartment, okay? But as far as spiritually, emotionally, mentally, financially, where I am going, my goals in my life, burnt to the ground. I gave him everything I could possibly have within whatever my limitations are. But my limitations were so far above as far as he's so limited in his capacity to combat, the capacity to, somebody that's a user, that takes, that depletes, that's parasitic, all those things mean something. You're not, learning the hard way. You got to do it right. A man does not enter your space. It's simple. A man does not enter your space, does not live in your space. If something is going to be done, it's good that you have your own space and you get a third place somewhere else. You don't move in with him and leave your own. That you get yourself set up enough where you can have your space, and if you want to enjoy life and share a life with somebody else, there's a third space. They're supposed to be the provider and do the work, and at least be able to provide and do the work. Or as R.C. Blake says, the goal and the vision. You got to see that in the person. that motivation, the ambition, because that's what makes them mad. It's testosterone and estrogen. Going back to the fibroid, who knows? Because my testosterone was through the roof, going back to the beyond Mars and Venus. Who knows if my testosterone was through the roof because I'm the type A doing, as I said in other videos, probably I was thinking for two brains. You know how much pressure that is on one person? A female not being able to take on her role and kind of like estrogen herself and lay back. No, there was no time to relax for me. No time. All right. Anyway, I think I talked enough. I hope the sonata information has helped anybody out there. Again, I only saw a slight improvement. Well, it's a bigger improvement after 8 cycles out. Maybe the 5th, 6th, and 7th, the amount of blood, it was just insane. Which is why I was clamoring to get that procedure done a month early, because every month that went by, the fibroids were growing and growing and growing. So maybe the ninth month out, I could have been even better than the 8th month out. So just do it soon, as soon as you can. It will be covered. I think I had to spend a total of like $3,000 of my own money to get this done, but I have my uterus and I'm going to fight for keeping it, until menopause, which could be another 6, 7 years. Who knows? Any questions? I'll answer them best I can. And yeah, I know I didn't include everything and was not as fluid as I'd want to be in speaking about this or other concepts, but I think you got the message, and you can interpret it in the best way that makes the most sense. Okay? And maybe see you again sometime.